the entire session, and as I've mentioned already in the description, it is about building product in no code. Right. And specific example being I've myself built my educational platform Bibli in no code and specifically using Flutterflow. Now we will also delve into what are the other options of no code and whether Flutterflow is the best choice and if you want to use something else as well. Right. So I'm going to just share a small video of what I built. I know it was already there in when during registration, but in case some of you could might have missed that, so it will just set the context of what is possible, right?
The cat sat on the mat. A big red bull is parked.
She is very amicable and light-headed. She juggles her workload between
The mama penguin is calling out to her baby. Listen and put the right baby next to mama penguin.
Right. So what is no code? No code is basically an application layer which creates code in backend and provides a user intuitive interface for no coders to build web or mobile applications. You might have seen some of these names earlier. Within web applications, there are few options like right now, the one which is really popular is Webflow, in which you are able to build websites and some sophisticated web applications as well. There is Wix, which has been there for quite some time, which again has a visual builder, and you can just directly align different widgets like forms or paragraphs, etc., and build websites. Within WordPress, there are different levels of sophistication, and there is a tool called Divi, which again helps in building web applications. For our discussion today, we are going to focus more on the mobile part of it because up until very recently, building mobile applications using no code was quite difficult. And there are two main platforms that have come up. One is, of course, Flutterflow, which I'm using and I'm going to talk about during the session. The second platform is called Bubble. Bubble is again a really good no-code solution. I don't have like very detailed experience with it, but while I was evaluating both the platforms, there were a couple of things that I analyzed, and that's what I'll also share, that how to go about choosing which platform to actually build with. So if you are building with Flutterflow, just the base of it is that Flutterflow is based on Flutter or Dart language, which is developed by Google for building mobile applications. So very large scale applications are built using Flutter or Dart code by coders since quite some time, right? From last 8-9 years or so, people have been building that, and Flutter has been a really good option to build hybrid apps. What are hybrid apps? Basically, if let's say you want to launch an app on iOS, Android, and web, if you are going to build in their native languages, then you will have to build a code base separately for iOS, Android, and web. Whereas in case of Flutter, you don't need to do that. There is one single code base which actually helps in managing iOS, Android, and web applications, right? So you are not doing your putting in efforts like 2-3 times compared to if you are building in a native manner. The third part, which was a question also that came in during the initial period, was can we export this code and build on it, right? So that is an option that Flutterflow provides, that at any point of time. So let's say you start building an MVP, you are a non-technical entrepreneur and you build it to a certain level. And after that, you feel that the business is going well, you hire a full tech team and a CTO, and they suggest that you actually need to build from scratch. Because whatever said and done, any no-code platform will have some limitations in terms of the kind of things that you can achieve by that. So it provides an option that you can able to export the entire code and then build on top of that, right? And even modify things. So the question was that, will it create some issues that will I have to write from scratch? So what I have worked with developers who have looked at this code as well, and the feedback has been that it is pretty neat in terms of the way it structures the code. And also you do not need to rewrite things. There might be few things that you might want to modify based on the kind of application that you are building. But it definitely provides a really good option that you are not wasting all the efforts that you are putting in building on Flutterflow and then exporting as a code and then starting from there as a technical developer, right? The second platform, which is Bubble, they use their own proprietary code framework. So it is not based on something like a Flutter or React, etc. They have their own front end, back end, and database. So you just get a visual builder where you are able to build that. And it is not possible as of now to, like in case of Flutterflow, you can export the code and then start building from there. In case of Bubble, you cannot modify it midway. Let's say you want to take the coding in-house instead of using a no-code platform, you will not be able to do that in case of Bubble, right? They might release it at some point of time, but as of now, it is not possible. And that was actually one of the main reasons why I chose to invest time and study more about Flutterflow than Bubble. Given that, let's say we build the MVP and there are more number of users, etc., coming in, and we want to start building it from directly using coding, then there is an option for us to just export it and start using it. Okay, so I was looking at the everybody who has registered, and many of you are just exploring this no code thing. So how technical is no code? So when we say that there is no coding required for this building applications, etc., still how technical it is. Good benchmark or judgment for you yourself would be to just check if there is are you comfortable building spreadsheet formulas and using VLOOKUP or putting in a lot of formula related to reporting, etc. and all? If you enjoy or you are comfortable doing that kind of a technical stuff, you will be comfortable using a no-code platform as well. Because while it does not require you to code, it is still logic. It is still logic driven, and it is still something which you will need to understand properly, objectively, for you to be able to build it. So if those Google spreadsheets or just building those Excels is something that scares you off, or you don't enjoy doing it, it might not be the right thing for you. You might still have to find a sort of a technical or an analyst kind of person with you who is able to build the application along with you. And while it is easy to understand, it is not related to coding. It is, you are still working with logic, etc. Okay, so now if you have to start building, what are the few questions that will come in? First is, of course, how do you build the user interface? You have done a design of the page. You want your app to look in a certain manner. How do you build the user interface? If, let's say, you want to show videos, you want to show some content, how do you link that data? How do you create a login? How do you publish the app on Play Store? How do you track data of app usage? So all of these multiple questions will come in your mind when you are trying to build an application. Now, in this session is not something in which you will get trained in Flutterflow. It is just going to show you what are the things that are possible. And for that, what I did was, very quickly today itself, I created a single page app, and which I'll show you how I built that in just like an hour's time or so. And like we will spend 10-15 minutes going through the different aspects of it, that what were the what all did we build. Hope you can see the screen where I have an emulator or a debug mode for an app. Right. So this is a simple one-page app for listening to audio stories. So these stories are coming from the database backend for Flutterflow. If I click on it, you can see that there is an audio player that comes over here. Now, again, I'll have to test if the audio is you are able to hear that or not. So let's just quickly.
Can you two help me by staying out of the flower beds while I work?
Leo and Taurus nodded their heads. They knew that Mrs. Jenkins worked hard to keep the garden beautiful.
So this is something like these 3-4 stories, etc., is something that I built just in less than an hour, like setting it up and building that. This is without any login, etc., Jingbang and all that. But it helps in understanding that what can be done with Flutterflow. So now I'll go a bit deep into what actually entails in building this simple one-page application, and it will give you a better idea of Flutterflow. So this is the Flutterflow interface, okay, and where you can see these different options of building widgets and all. So this particular thing that you see over here is a page selector, where there are 3-4 different pages that are created. This is a widget tree for this particular page, right? And there is a build option where you can see commonly used elements. Now, if you notice, if it is visible a bit over here, you can see there are different options of text, column, row, container, image, button. There are different other layout options of card, stack, list view, etc., and all those things, right? So all these helps us in building the layout. The first question that comes to your mind, whether how do I build the layout of the app if I don't know coding? It is a simple drag and drop that you need to do. So this is the test page that I was showing you in the emulator, where we have linked it to data and all. Now you see that it is looking a bit different, actually quite different from what the application was, because all that data that you were seeing over here, that video, the images, the audio is coming from the database. It is not directly embedded over here, and I'll just show how that is done. So to move, so before doing that, just a bit of understanding of the technical framework of Flutterflow. So if you look at this slide, so basically Flutterflow, what it does is it helps you to build the user interface and create some logic-based actions related to various user interactions. So like if there is a button click or you need to hide something, you saw there was an expandable over there where I clicked on it and then the audio player came out. So all those kind of logic actions can be built over here. It interacts with a database, which is the database mainly used is Firebase. Now there are other options also. It also gives an option to connect with another database provider called Supabase, S-U-P-A-B-A-S-E. But I found that Firebase is more widely used, and I've been using it, and there is really good documentation, and it integrates natively with Firebase. So I've gone ahead with doing that. Right. And so the difference between database and main Flutterflow application being that database is all your user data, application related data, and then you are just connecting both of them using Flutterflow's framework for you to show different types of content, etc. Right. The third part, which is an optional thing, if let's say, now, for example, in my app, I send weekly WhatsApp reports to parents about how the child is doing, right? And I need to build something where it analyzes all the data of students and collates that in a particular format and sends that across. So that is done with the help of a cloud function, which is completely optional. You may or may not have an usage of this particular feature for building an application. But if your application requires, there are native integrations with cloud functions within Flutterflow in which you can connect it. And if for specific jobs that are required or for calling AI functions, etc., there are some native integrations for using AI within Flutterflow itself as well, but you can do it via Google Cloud Functions as well, right? So that's the technical stack. Now moving to what I was talking about. So what I'll do is I'll spend the next 10 minutes just building this page, which will give you an idea. I'll just try to replicate this page once again, and it will give you an idea that how it is actually done in Flutterflow. And then more or less we will summarize it and then open it up for questions on what you would want to know. So over here, I'm just adding a page. Just quickly, let me check if there is any issue. Okay. I'll address, I'm seeing some of the questions over there, but I'll address the questions in a bit. So let me start by creating a page, right? So if you see that once I do this a new page, there are different options that are coming in, like a blank page or a sign up, and then there's content related options and all. So you are free to use any of these templates, or you can use it from blank. As of now, I'll use something from a blank and then show how to add widgets. So let's say Flutterflow live session. So it gives a basic structure. Now on the left side, there is this option of widget tree where I see a column, right? So that's the starting point. So basically Flutterflow has this concept of columns and rows. Whenever you want to stack items in a vertical manner, you start with a column. If let's say you want to stack things in a horizontal manner, you start with a row, and then you decide that within a column you can add rows. Within within one row you can add multiple columns, etc. That's how it reads different UI widgets and starts building. Over here right now, I'm going to wrap this column in a container. What is a container? Container is basically it helps in structuring the width height of a particular area. And if let's say you want to give some styling, like I want to give some fill color of over here, then I can do that. So let's say I choose a different background than just using white. So I'm able to do that. It's a very subtle change, but this background little bit changed over here. Now, if you have seen the app that I showed you, there was a text in the top, right? So this I can just change over here. Now within column, I'm adding a text which I'll use as a headline. And post which I'm going to use something which is called a list view, right? Now, there are multiple widgets that are there, and obviously we cannot cover each and everything in this session. The widgets that I'm using right now is just to give you an idea that, okay, these things are possible. Of course, it will take some time for it once you start to explore each and everything in detail and understand what's there. So this text, like I said, I'll be using it like a subheadline or so. So listen to the audio stories. If there is some styling that I need to change, over here it is written body medium, so I want it a bit larger. So I've made it like a title large. Now I want all of these to actually be left aligned instead of center aligned. So you see in the column, I have this option. So as soon as I click over here, everything goes left aligned. Now within, why did I add list view? Because from database, I'm going to pick these audio stories. Now, what would be the number of these audio stories is not something that I know when I'm building it, right? So maybe in database, you want to add 5 audio stories, you want to add 10 audio stories, you want to add 20 audio stories, and all that will be variable. But at the time when I'm building it, I do not know that. So the list view helps us in doing that, where I can create what is called in technical language, a child of this widget. And each child could be that audio story. The number of children And again, you'll get used to these terms once you start building something in Flutterflow. So number of children of this list view will depend how many are there in the database, right? So over here, I'm just going to add a container for now. Now this list view, I want it to fetch things dynamically, right? So which means that I need to add some sort of a query. So over here, I'll just show you. Some of you can give a thumbs up if you can see this database that I'm showing you. Right. So in this audio, so this is Firebase, and in the audio stories collection, I have these 4 different documents in which I have stored the audio files, etc. Right. So you can see there is a book audio URL, which is basically the URL for that audio. There are other details also related to who has updated that data and all of that. There's a book name, there's a book thumbnail file, and there is a book thumbnail file URL, right? Now I need to map all of these in Flutterflow for me to be able to display that over there, right? So now moving back over here, this is something that I've already done in interest of time, like this collection that was built. So if you see over here, there is an option called connect. This is an icon for Firestore, in which whatever is the collection structure in Firebase, you have to define the same thing over here. So if you see, I've defined that we are going to use audio stories in which there is a book name, which if you have some technical knowledge, you would understand string means basically text kind of variables. Book audio URL, it's an audio path. Book thumbnail URL, it's an image path. Story description, which is again a string. Author, again a string. Story duration, again a string. So this is the input for Flutterflow to understand that, okay, data is going to come in this form, right? And now I can connect that data in this particular page, however I want to do. So now in the thing that you saw as an expandable, so that's a particular widget that is available within Flutterflow itself. So here I've added an expandable, right? Where if you remember this app, you could see this, right? So there is a different view when it is collapsed and a different view when it is expanded. So that is called an expandable. So like this, there are multiple other options that Flutterflow has already created for you that you can use it directly. Like you do not need to actually think about, okay, what the layout will be and all. You can directly use this. You just need to study all the options that are present. Right. So over here, there's a option of text. Now this text, I want to map it to story headline, right? So wherever I want to link it to database, this icon that you see, if I click on it, it will give me an option to link it to database. So right now I have not fetched that data. So in technical terms, you need to query that data to be able to link it with the widgets over here. For doing that, within this list view, I'm going to add this query. So I'm going to query the collection. Now in collections, you see it is showing me the 2 options that I added and told Flutterflow that these are the 2 collections in my Firebase settings, right? So in audio stories, then I'm going to fetch a list of documents. Now there are other options. You can add filters, etc., and all of that. We are not going to go in that detail. If your database collection is huge, then you can add some limit as well. Otherwise, it can slow the app down and many number of documents can come in. And I'm confirming this. So now it is giving me a message, right? It is giving me a message by adding a backend query, it is going to create its children dynamically, which is the exact thing that we wanted, right? So I'm going to confirm this. Just intermittently checking the question box just to ensure that you are able to hear properly or not. All right. So what I did over here, we added we queried this collection of audio stories. Now it is giving us some documents, right? Now these documents, each audio story document, I can connect with the fields over here. So you see this text, which is the story headline that I wanted to collect. You see this audio stories document option over here, which is new. It was not there when I first checked it. But because I have queried it and it is highlighting over on the left hand side, if you see, the list view is sort of an orange or a dark brown color it is showing, which means that the query is coming, this is coming from that particular query, this document, right? And when I put the document, because this is a text, it will give me all the options which are like a string. So I can add a book name, I can either link it to story description, author, story duration, etc. Right? So over here, I'm just linking it to book name. As simple as that. Now, whatever you have added in the database, it will show over here dynamically one after the other. Right. So now in the collapsed view within this container, I want to show the image thumbnail, right? And I don't necessarily want this text thing. So I'll click over here and also check for some options which are called as cards. So within Flutterflow, you see these, they have these different options where they have already designed headers, cards, content views, etc. So I've now clicked on this card views. Now I'm going to select anyone which I want to use, right? So let's say, so within this container, I have added this particular card view. Actually, I can also add this directly within the collapsed thing, which I'm going to do. Don't worry about if it is going a bit fast. It is more to get an idea and not know things very precisely on how each and everything is working. Now, in this card, there are some like different options for visibility, etc. So I'm going to choose something which is simpler. This one looks simpler. So you see, it's dynamically adding this particular card, but also it is taking some particular width of that. That's why there is some overlap that is happening, which we'll solve one by one. We will look at it and we will solve those things. That is mostly because this container over here, we have put a height of 100 pixels. So if I remove this, mostly it should, yeah, it's now solved where there is no overlap that is happening within in this container, right? Now this image that you see over here, I want to link it to the story image over here. So this image, again, similar options over here in this path. I'll go to the audio stories document. I'll link it to the book thumbnail URL, right? This text that is shown over here, this I will link it to the story description. And they have used title large. I don't want this to be so big. So I'm going to use something small, which is body medium. Within this, there's an author that you can choose. Over here, you can choose story duration. right? Now in the expanded view, what I want is that I want to basically show the audio player, right? I don't want this text and image. So in this column, I'm going to search for audio player within Flutterflow. So there are native options for video player, audio player, etc. So I'm adding this audio player over here. I'm going to remove this text. I let it be because I want to link it to the story thumbnail just for a better visual appeal. So in this image, I'm linking this book thumbnail URL. In the audio player, again, there are options of adding the audio URL over here. So I go over here and link the book audio URL. So one thing you will see that it is intelligent to understand that it cannot take other options of string or image path. It is only giving me the option where it is an audio path of book audio URL. So these visual cues also help you in when you are actually building it. It gives you an option to be able to do it in a proper manner, right? The audio option. So sort of now I have connected the different data points that are required for this expandable and collapsed view, etc. Right? Now there's one thing that I'll do, which is in my app details, the first page was test page. Now I'm going to change this to my Flutterflow live session, so that when the app refreshes, the first page that is shown is the app that we built just now, right? So let's see. So this is the live test of what happens. So I'm just running this in test mode and seeing what we see as a result. So this particular thing that you see is a test mode inbuilt with Flutterflow. So whenever you want to test if the data, etc., is coming properly or not, you can click on that. There's another option of preview, but that is only for UI. Like you can just check what how is the UI of it, and that is faster than this. But this, because they build the app, it takes few minutes for it to load. Right. So if you see, we were able to build this. Now there is some overflow issues that is coming. It is probably because I've used 100% for this container and there is an app bar on top. So those things can be resolved. But basically the data that was there in our Firebase collection, what I uploaded is coming over here, right? And this particular story, again, you can like play it and listen as well.
One day, as Leo and Taurus were playing in the backyard, they heard Mrs. Jenkins, their kind owner, calling them.
Right. So now I can like go ahead and keep making it more beautiful, add more functionalities. If I want to sort it in a particular manner, all those things can be done. But this was to give you a basic idea that how simple or a bit technical it is when you are building product using no code. So it did use logic, like you need to understand, okay, yeah, there is a database, you need to connect it, you need to link those things as well for the data to show properly. But in terms of the time it took, like literally within, I don't know when we actually started doing this, but probably in last 15 or 20 minutes or so, we were able to build a page, connect it to data, and actually really run the app, right? So that's was the main thing that I wanted to cover. Now, few other aspects within Flutterflow, there are a lot of native integrations. Firebase, I already spoke about. You can connect Google Maps. Now, Code Magic is a really wonderful integration they have for app publishing. So typically, app publishing in itself becomes quite a bit of a challenge when you have to publish the app to Play Store or App Store for Android and iOS and all. once the setup is done, they have built a single button upload kind of a feature where I just now for publishing my app, I just have to go to the interface, add the version number and just deploy it, and it goes to Play Store or App Store, right? They have integrations. Again, I'll show this in the platform as well. They are like you see, there are multiple options, which of course we cannot go in much detail over here, but these are open API calls. Like you are able to add open API calls, etc. If you want to build some of those functionality that you can build. The option to add data types, again, we cannot cover in this session itself. This is a really interesting feature. I use it a lot, which is custom code. So initially when I explained about my app, I must have told that 80% is built in Flutterflow and 20% is actually custom code. So if let's say you are not satisfied with the options that are there in Flutterflow editor, you want to do something which is you don't find the options over there. Like for example, the audio story that we are playing, you wanted some different kind of an interface. You can build your own code and integrate over here, right? You need not always use things that are given by Flutterflow. So this gives you a lot of flexibility, especially the games that you saw when I was showing my app demo, where there were phonics games and there was a lot of, now they have built a drag and drop widget as well. But earlier when I was doing this 5-6 months back, they did not have a drag and drop widget. So that I built using custom code and then integrated it with the main code as well. So it gives you flexibility for scale up while it is providing all the basics. If you actually want to do a lot of custom coding as well, that is possible as well, right? Again, native integrations with Google Analytics, Razorpay. If you are looking for international payments, then Stripe as well. All those native integrations, etc., are available over here, right? Sort of, I'm done with the with what I wanted to cover. So yeah, any questions? I'll just go through the Q&A thing as well. Whose voice is this? Okay, so that voice is the one that you were seeing is AI generated, but it is added in the backend. You see it on your phone, you would see have to scroll down. Yeah, of course, if there are more number of stories that are there, then you will scroll down. And the page size is not limited, just as an option, just to show within this column over here. An option to mark it scrollable, right? So if I make it scrollable, then of course it will scroll down multiple times down, but there could be other overflow issues as well, which you solve one by one, right? And this voice is something that you add in the database, so you can use anybody's voice. It's not limited to the voice that you heard right now. For my current app, I'm still building in Flutterflow, but I'm using a lot of custom code as well, where I built custom widgets related to, like I mentioned, related to phonics games, etc., and all that. And I've found it sufficient till now. I have not found the reason to shift to another platform or migrate the code to Flutter and use it directly. Okay, I think I've covered. Okay, one question which has come right now about AI integration, right? So I cannot show it in detail. Basically, for AI integration, first you need to decide what kind of platforms you want to use. So, for example, if you want to do an audio translation, then 11 Labs is really good. If you want to say use a story and you want to generate question answers based on that, then OpenAI ChatGPT platform is really good. So all of these provide sort of their API keys which you can create as you create the account. And then there are small pieces of code that you need to integrate, right? So the window that I was showing to you within Flutterflow, where there was that OpenAI call, let me just briefly show that. Right, so here is how you define a particular call, right? And there are different types of calls that are there, which are related to creating images, creating speech and all of these are related to OpenAI. But you can create others as well, which could be 11 Labs or other AI platforms, whatever you feel is apt for your particular use case. All of these API calls are basically done by hitting a particular URL. You need to provide some sort of an authorization, which is typically the AI key that is handled. Now, if you look at this create chat completion, this is the URL which needs to be hit for an OpenAI. In the body, you need to add the messages, etc. that you want. If let's say these, let's say for example, you instead of this content, tell us about moon. You want the question to come from the user. Then you would add it as a variable over here and then put it in the body. Instead of directly putting a particular content, you would add a particular variable and put it over here. And when the app would trigger this particular API, it will give you a response. So there are many details with the API, which I cannot cover right now. But just to give you an overview, it is quite straightforward to integrate OpenAI related APIs in Flutterflow. How many people can work simultaneously to build? It's basically depending on number of seats you can buy. So if you are using the free plan, there are some limitations that you cannot download the code, you cannot actually publish the app. While you can build everything, you cannot publish the app if you are using the free version. The monthly subscription is pretty low. It is just 2,100 rupees per seat. If let's say you have multiple people working in your team, then you will have to buy those many number of seats, because if you have one seat only, it does not allow other people to work on it simultaneously. Okay, can you guide on how to start? So how to start, I would say, is go to the platform, create an account, take a simple use case and start building. One thing is, on my TopMate page, you would also find free discovery calls. Okay, so let's you can these are just 20 minutes call. If you have a specific use case and you want to discuss it on on how do you go about it, feel free to book it and I can help you with your particular use case. In this session, it's difficult to take up specific use cases as well, but at the same time, I learned this on my own. So feel free to just go ahead and start learning instead of waiting for people to tell you. The other thing that I've also started is sort of a support community, which is a paid community, but let's say you are getting stuck at finer things. So when I was building, one of the main issues that I felt was there would be very small or minor issues for which I would spend days because there was nobody to tell. And there is sort of just this awareness of this platforms is a bit less. So that was the reason why I had this particular community in there, that if you are stuck, it's only chat, there is no call, etc. You share your problem statement and what is the resolution of that, we'll come back and solve it within like 24 to 48 hours or so. So those are the few things that I'm personally starting to help you. But there is enough documentation, there are enough number of videos on the internet for you to go through and understand whatever I'm saying. I've not learned it from anyone. I've just gone through a lot of material and understood it to build